The first thing Damon Price noticed when he stepped off the freighter was the smell. Acrid, metallic, and a little too sharp on the edge of the breeze. He sniffed, wrinkled his nose, and adjusted the crate he was carrying. Beside him, nestled in a battered carrier slung over his shoulder, his dog Rufus let out a low whine. Damon reached into the mesh and scratched behind the beagle's ear. "Yeah, buddy, I smell it too," Damon muttered. The port on Vorta 7 wasn't built with humans in mind. The platforms were uneven, the lighting buzzed an angry green, and the dockworkers' massive, scaled beings called the Drevians towered over everyone else. Damon had read the briefings. Drevians were top-tier predators on their homeworld, and by galactic standards, their raw strength made them one of the most feared species in the known systems. Not that Damon cared. He just wanted to deliver the medical supplies, get paid, and get Rufus back to a place with some real grass. A Drevian's crew boss stomped over, his heavy footfalls shaking the platform. His scales were a dull red, crisscrossed with old scars. He pointed a thick claw at Damon and barked something in his guttural native tongue. Damon didn't flinch. He set the crate down carefully and pulled up the translator on his wrist. "I'm looking for Dockmaster Varn," Damon said evenly. The Drevian snorted a sound like two stones grinding together and waved a dismissive hand. Damon caught the gesture and followed the broad sweep toward a cluster of metal buildings. He moved, Rufus dozing lightly against his side. Inside the dockmaster's office, the air was worse. Damon coughed once and approached the desk where a large Drevian sat hunched over a blinking terminal. Varn looked up and narrowed his golden eyes. "You are late," Varn said, the translator lagging half a second behind. "Had to reroute around a solar flare," Damon said. "I've got your shipment. 20 crates of antibiogenics, signed and sealed. Leave them at Dock 6, Varn grunted. "You will be paid after inspection." Damon gave a tight nod and turned to leave, but Rufus shifted, stretching his stubby legs. Varn's gaze snapped to the carrier. "What is that?" Varn demanded. "A dog," Damon said simply. "He's harmless," Varn's lip curled. "Predators do not keep prey as companions." "Humans do," Damon said. "And he's not prey." Varn made a sound that Damon decided not to categorize and waved him off again. Damon left without another word, feeling the tension coil tighter in his gut. Outside, he unloaded the crates painstakingly, one by one. Drevians watched him, their deep-set eyes gleaming with amusement. Damon ignored them. He was almost finished when a low growl rumbled nearby. He turned just in time to see a young Drevian, maybe half a head shorter than the others, crouching by Rufus's carrier. Rufus barked once, a sharp, nervous sound. The Drevian jabbed at the carrier with a taloned finger, making Rufus yelp. Damon dropped the crate he was holding. It hit the deck with a heavy thud. He crossed the distance in 3 long strides. "Hey!" Damon shouted. The Drevian looked up, wearing an unmistakable expression Damon could only describe as mockery. Around him, the other Drevians laughed a deep, echoing sound that rattled Damon's bones. "He is weak," the young Drevian sneered. "Like you." Then he jabbed again, harder. Rufus let out a sharp, pained whine. Damon's world narrowed to a pinpoint. He unbuckled the strap across his chest, letting the carrier slip gently down. With his free hand, he reached behind his belt and drew the blade he kept there, a simple, worn steel combat knife, its edge honed to a whisper. "You hurt my pet," Damon said, his voice low and steady. The laughter faltered. A few Drevians shifted uneasily. Damon didn't give the young Drevian time to react. He lunged, driving the blade into the gap between the Drevian's scales where the neck met the shoulder. The creature howled and stumbled backward, blood dark and viscous spurting from the wound. The dock exploded into chaos. 3 Drevians rushed Damon at once. He ducked the first, slashed the second across the thigh, and rolled to avoid the third's swinging arm. His heart hammered in his chest, and every breath felt like fire, but he kept moving. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to survive. Steel flashed in his hand, quick and brutal. He nicked tendons, severed muscles. He fought like a cornered animal, every move calculated to disable, not kill. The Drevians howled in frustration, their massive forms slow compared to Damon's desperate speed. Somewhere in the fray, Rufus barked wildly, the carrier rocking. Damon spotted Varn pushing through the crowd, bellowing orders. A heavy stun baton in Varn's hand crackled ominously. Damon pivoted, trying to put distance between himself and the incoming reinforcements. A heavy fist caught him in the ribs. He heard something crack and staggered, gasping. Pain bloomed white-hot across his side. Varn swung the baton. Damon barely managed to parry with his knife, but the force of the blow sent him sprawling. His knife skittered across the deck, out of reach. Boots thundered toward him. Damon scrambled to his knees, blood dripping from his lip. "Enough," Varn roared. The Drevians froze. Damon stayed where he was, chest heaving, one arm cradling his ribs. Varn loomed over him. "You drew steel against my crew," Varn said. "You hurt my dog," Damon rasped. One of the older Drevians stepped forward, nursing a deep gash along his forearm. He glared at Varn. "He fights like a born killer," the Drevian said. "Small but dangerous." Another murmured agreement. Varn's eyes narrowed. "You will pay for this," Varn said. Damon forced himself to his feet, swaying slightly. "You want me to pay," he said. "Fine, challenge me." The Drevians exchanged uneasy glances. Challenge was a sacred tradition among them, a duel to settle disputes sanctioned by ancient law, but challenging a human, that was madness. Varn bared his teeth. "You are injured, you will die." "You first," Damon said, and spat blood onto the deck. The dock fell silent. Even the battered Drevians looked wary now. Varn hesitated. Then he lowered the baton and stepped back. "Take your animal and go," Varn said. "We are done." Damon didn't argue. He scooped up Rufus's carrier, wincing as the movement pulled at his ribs, and backed away slowly. The Drevians parted for him, watching, silent now. He didn't turn his back until he was well clear of the docks. Later, aboard his freighter, Damon collapsed onto the med cot. His breathing was shallow and painful. He ran the scanner over his side. Broken rib, bruised lung. Would need weeks to heal properly. Rufus climbed onto his chest carefully, whining low in his throat. "I know, buddy," Damon whispered. "I know." He closed his eyes, feeling the thrum of the ship jump into hyperspace. Back on Vorta 7, the Drevians gathered in the dockmaster's office. Varn sat heavily, wincing at the bruises blooming across his torso. "No more laughing at humans," Varn said grimly. None of the others argued. 3 hours after leaving Vorta 7 docks behind, Damon sat hunched at the tiny galley table of his freighter, the clumsy patch job on his ribs barely holding together. The Medi-gel had sealed the worst of the bruising, but no amount of tech could erase the deep ache humming through his bones. He sipped tepid water from a cracked mug, the ship's atmosphere scrubbers rattling weakly overhead. Rufus lay curled on the bench across from him, ears twitching in restless sleep. Damon watched the little dog for a moment, then leaned back with a hiss, cradling his side. "You're gonna be the death of me, you know that," Damon muttered. The ship's comm crackled. Damon flinched, nearly upsetting the mug. "Unidentified human freighter," a clipped voice announced. "This is Vorta Command. Stand by for inspection boarding." Damon wiped a hand across his face. "You have got to be kidding me," he groaned. He dragged himself to the cockpit, each movement stiff and miserable. The calm light blinked an angry red. He hit the transmit button with his knuckles. "Freighter Magpie responding," Damon said. "Inspection for what?" "Routine compliance," the voice said. "Failure to comply will result in seizure." "Yeah, sure," Damon muttered. "Come aboard, bring snacks." He killed the calm and set the ship into a slow drift. Outside the viewport, a sleek Vortan patrol cutter glided into position, its dock arms extending like the legs of a spider. Damon stood up too fast, swore under his breath, and grabbed his jacket. When the boarding ramp clanged open, 2 Vortans stepped aboard. Slender, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the ship's lights, they wore the flat black uniforms of Port Authority enforcers. Their wide-set eyes flickered over everything with detached calculation. "You are injured," one of them observed, voice flat. Yeah, well, your people aren't exactly the welcoming committee, Damon said. The Vorta ignored the barb. State the purpose of your visit. Delivery, Damon said. Medical supplies. The second Vorta peered around him at the cargo hold, still half loaded with empty crates. You appear to have completed your task, the second said. Not without some excitement, Damon said tightly. The first Vorta stepped closer, gaze lingering on Damon's side. You require medical attention. No kidding, Damon said. But unless you've got a human doctor hiding up your sleeve, I'll manage. The Vortans exchanged a glance. Damon couldn't tell if it was amusement or pity. Either way, he hated giving them the satisfaction. Your pet, the first said, gesturing toward Rufus, who had padded into the cockpit doorway, tail wagging uncertainly. Rufus barked once, a high-pitched yap that echoed weirdly against the freighter's walls. The second Vorta recoiled slightly. It is armed. Damon almost laughed, but the movement hurt too much. He's got teeth, maybe a mean disposition if you step on his tail, that's about it. The Vortans conferred in low murmurs. Damon caught fragments, unregistered species, quarantine protocols, potential vector. You're not impounding my dog, Damon said sharply. Our regulations didn't stop your Drevians from trying to tenderize me on the dock. That earned a pause. You initiated violence, the first Vorta said. They poked the bear, Damon said, and by bear I mean the tiny dog. Who, by the way, still hasn't recovered from the trauma. Rufus whined for effect, ears drooping. The second Vorta looked genuinely unsettled. We will note. Extenuating circumstances, the first said at last. Good, Damon said. Anything else? The Vortans finished their inspection methodically, scanning the ship's systems, checking registry tags, cataloging fuel reserves. Damon endured it in silence, leaning against the bulkhead and breathing shallowly to keep the pain manageable. When they finally left, he sealed the hatch behind them with a heavy sigh. Congratulations, Rufus, Damon said. You're officially contraband. The dog wagged his tail, utterly unconcerned. Damon set the ship back on course, aiming for the medical way station at Gamma Idris. It was 2 days out at standard drive, a miserable trip under the best of circumstances. By the second night, Damon's condition had worsened. Fever burned under his skin. His side throbbed with every heartbeat, and he couldn't take a deep breath without feeling like a knife was twisting in his chest. He knew the signs: internal bleeding, possible punctured lung. If he didn't get proper treatment soon, he wasn't going to make it. He sat in the cockpit, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, staring blearily at the swirling starfield outside. Rufus, he rasped, get me the medkit. Rufus tilted his head, then trotted to the cabinet and pawed at the latch. Damon managed a weak laugh. Good boy, he whispered. The kit clattered to the floor. Damon fumbled it open and pulled out the emergency injector. He hesitated, then plunged it into his thigh. The painkillers hit like a hammer, making his vision swim, but the worst of the agony ebbed. He laid his head back against the seat. Just a little longer, he muttered. When the way station finally hove into view, a battered ring of metal and flickering lights orbiting a dying star, Damon almost wept with relief. He hailed docking control with what little voice he had left. This is Magpie, he rasped. Request immediate medical assistance. The response was immediate and curt. Dock at Bay 12. Medical team standing by. Damon guided the ship in on autopilot, hands trembling on the controls. As the docking clamps engaged, the hatch cycled open and 2 station medics hurried aboard. They were humans, thank whatever luck was still on his side. One was a sharp-eyed woman with a shaved head, the other a wiry man with a lopsided nose. How long have you been like this? The woman demanded, scanning him rapidly. Couple days, Damon slurred. You're a damn idiot, the man said, already slapping monitors onto Damon's chest. Noted, Damon whispered. They moved fast, threading Roman 4 lines, injecting stabilizers. Damon winced as a cold rush spread through his veins. Collapsed lung, the woman said. Internal bleeding, rib fragments. You're lucky you didn't drown in your own blood. Lucky's my middle name, Damon muttered. They got him onto a gurney and hustled him toward the station's infirmary, Rufus trotting anxiously at their heels. Later, he wasn't sure how much later Damon woke in a dim room, the steady beep of monitors filling the silence. His side was heavily bandaged, and breathing, while still painful, no longer felt like a losing battle. Rufus sat beside the bed, tail thumping against the floor. The door slid open with a hiss and a woman in a tailored gray uniform stepped in. She wasn't a medic. Too stiff, too polished, authority radiated off her in waves. Damon groaned internally. "You're Damon Price," she said without preamble. "Depends who's asking," Damon croaked. "Commander Elen Voss, station security." She pulled a chair up to the bed and sat, legs crossed neatly. "You caused quite a stir on Vorta 7, she said. "I was just defending my dog," Damon said. Voss studied him. "You disabled 4 Drevians, armed only with a knife." "I didn't exactly have a plasma rifle handy." "You challenged Dockmaster Varn to a duel." "Thought it was the polite thing to do." Voss's mouth twitched just slightly. "The Vortan authority has lodged a formal complaint," she said. "They want you fined, possibly banned from their ports." "Sounds about right," Damon said. "They always did have a glass jaw." "However," Voss said, leaning back, "the Drevians have retracted their charges, publicly." Damon blinked. "You're kidding." "They cited recognition of worthy adversary and honorable conduct in defense of pack member." Damon stared at her. "You impressed them," Voss said. "That's unprecedented." "All I did was take care of my own," Damon said. "Isn't that what anyone would do?" "Not anyone," Voss said. "Most species don't fight half-ton predators over a pet." Damon shrugged, regretting it instantly as pain flared. Voss stood. "You'll be released once the doctors clear you," she said. "After that, you're free to go." She paused at the door. "By the way," she added, "the Drevians sent a gift." She stepped aside, revealing a heavy crate stamped with Drevian sigils. Damon eyed it warily. "Should I be worried?" Voss smiled thinly. "They're weapons, custom forged, meant for someone they respect." Damon laughed, a raw sound that turned into a cough. "Tell them thanks," he said hoarsely. "But next time, maybe just send a fruit basket." Voss chuckled quietly and left. Rufus hopped up onto the bed, nosing at Damon's hand. "Guess we made an impression, huh, buddy?" Damon said. Rufus licked his fingers and settled beside him. Damon closed his eyes, feeling the steady thrum of the station around him, and allowed himself, for the first time in days, to rest. 3 days later, Damon sat slouched in a rolling chair at the station's small rehabilitation center, a thick brace wrapped around his ribs, a faint antiseptic scent clinging to everything. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, and a cooling unit hummed against the heat bleeding from the old station walls. He rotated his shoulder carefully, testing the limits of his healing body while Rufus snoozed under the bench, paws twitching with whatever dream adventures his mind conjured. Across from him, a tall insectoid being adjusted a series of holographic projectors. Its carapace shimmered in shifting hues of blue and green, and its 6 delicate arms moved with unsettling grace. Damon had learned its name was Keshvarl, and it was the station's senior physiotherapist and expert in trauma recovery, though apparently unused to working with humans who insisted on arguing about every piece of advice. "You will not regain full mobility if you insist on performing unsanctioned repairs to your ship," Keshvarl said, voice clicking rhythmically through the translator. "I'm not lifting anything heavier than a sandwich," Damon said. "I swear." "You improperly recalibrated your aft stabilizers yesterday," Keshvarl said without looking up. "Security footage shows you wielding a hydrospanner above shoulder height." "Snitch," Damon muttered under his breath. Keshvarl ignored him and activated the projectors. A translucent human skeleton spun slowly in the air between them, highlighting fractures in his rib cage and faint scar tissue along his lung lining. "Your organic structures exhibit remarkable regenerative tendencies," Keshvarl said. "However, your disregard for rest protocols remains statistically self-destructive. Yeah, well, humans bounce back. It's kind of our thing. Illogical, Keshvarl said. You do not possess exoskeletal reinforcement, your vascular system is fragile, your musculature is redundant and inefficient. Yet here I am, Damon said, spreading his hands. Still breathing, still walking. Keshvarl tilted its head, mandibles shifting thoughtfully. Your species' survival mechanisms are contradictory, it said. You are simultaneously vulnerable and resilient beyond prediction models. Story of our lives, Damon said. The projector dimmed, and Keshvarl handed him a wrapped packet containing a series of flexible support bands and a new set of medication vials. Administer one dose every 12 hours until the inflammation subsides, Keshvarl said. Discontinue all extraneous physical exertion. I'll behave, Damon said, tucking the packet into his jacket pocket. You will not, Keshvarl said flatly. Damon grinned and pushed himself upright, wincing slightly. Rufus sprang to his feet, tail wagging furiously, and Damon ruffled the dog's ears with his good hand. As they made their way back to their docked freighter, the station's main concourse buzzed with activity. Traders hawked wares from battered kiosks, strange music drifted from a cluster of street performers, and the air smelled faintly of fried, something Damon didn't want to identify. A hulking figure blocked their path near Dock 12. Damon slowed instinctively. The figure turned, revealing a familiar scaled face, though this Drevian's coloration was a deep mossy green rather than Varn's dull red. Human, the Drevian said, voice low and careful. Damon tensed but kept his stance relaxed. That's me. You are Damon Price, the Drevian said. I am Kravax. Blood cousin to Dockmaster Varn, Damon raised an eyebrow. Small galaxy. Kravax regarded him, nostrils flaring. Several passers-by gave them a wide berth. You fought honorably, Kravax said. You defended your pack member without hesitation. This is respected among Drevians. Appreciate it, Damon said cautiously. But if you're here to settle a score, I'm not exactly in dueling shape. I have no quarrel, Kravax said. I am here to deliver recognition. From a pouch at his belt, Kravax withdrew a heavy pendant wrought from some dark, iridescent metal. It was shaped like a broken fang enclosed in a ring. This is the mark of resolve, Kravax said. Few outside our kind have received it. Damon hesitated. Is there a catch? You are expected to wear it, Kravax said. When among Drevians, it will grant you safe passage. Damon accepted the pendant, feeling the surprising warmth of the metal against his palm. Tell Varn I said thanks, Damon said. And that next time, maybe we can just have a drink instead. Kravax inclined his head, then turned and disappeared into the crowd with a fluid, predatory grace. Damon tucked the pendant into his jacket and resumed walking. Rufus trotted beside him, blissfully unaware that his human had just been adopted into an alien honor code. By the time they reached the Magpie, Damon's side was aching fiercely. He leaned against the boarding ramp, catching his breath. You realize, he said to Rufus, we're probably going to have to update the ship's insurance now. Freighter, cargo space modified, crew includes honorary Drevian. They're gonna love that. Inside, the ship felt cooler, quieter. Damon slumped into the pilot's chair and powered up the systems. The nav screen flickered to life, and a list of nearby contracts scrolled across the display. Most were low risk. Ferry jobs, minor cargo runs, a few survey assignments. His instincts itched for something more exciting, but Keshvarl's warning still rang fresh in his ears. He tapped one of the easier gigs, transport of archival materials to a research outpost 2 systems over. Good pay, minimal chance of getting stabbed. As the ship lifted off from the station, Damon allowed himself a moment to savor the feeling of freedom. Rufus jumped into the co-pilot's seat and stuck his head out the viewport, tongue lolling happily. Stars stretched into streaks as they jumped to faster than light speed. Hours later, as the Magpie cruised smoothly along its course, Damon sat cross-legged in the small common room, carefully cleaning and inspecting the blade he had used on Vorta 7. The steel was nicked and dulled in places, and a faint line of Drevian blood still stained the hilt. He worked methodically, wiping and oiling the blade until it gleamed faintly in the low light. Rufus snored nearby, paws twitching against the floor. For the first time since the whole mess started, Damon allowed himself a real smile, not the grim, teeth-bared grin he wore when things went sideways, but something smaller, lighter. He thought of Varn of Cravax, of the way the Drevians had looked at him not with disdain or pity, but with a wary, grudging respect. It was ridiculous, really. All it had taken was standing his ground over a scrawny, stubborn little dog. No grand speeches, no desperate heroics. Just a simple, stubborn refusal to back down. Maybe that was humanity's real superpower, he thought. Not strength or speed or cunning, just the refusal to let go of the things that mattered. The ship's clock ticked over another hour. Damon slid the blade back into its sheath and leaned back against the bulkhead, feeling the steady thrum of the Magpie's engines through his spine. It wasn't much, but it was enough, and for once, enough felt like everything he needed.